Today we're going to walk through how to install NavXtender to enable document dragging and dropping within NAV. So the first step would be to download the install file from the website. Once that's done, you'll get this zip, and I'll open this up and give you a quick walkthrough of the files contained within that zip file. The first is a README that you can open up and review everything that we're discussing in this video is in that README, plus a little bit more detail on each of the configuration options. There's the end user license agreement, and then a couple of files, folders here for the installers. So there's a 64-bit version and a 32-bit version, depending on which version of the NAV Windows client you're running. If you're running NAV 2015 and older, you'll want to run this 32-bit version, the x86. If you're running NAV 2016 and newer, it's likely the 64-bit version that you'll want to run. If you happen to install one or the other and it's the wrong version, you'll get a warning message. Simply uninstall it and install the other version. For me, I'm going to install the 64-bit version right now. So we'll click on that, we'll run the installer, and we'll just accept all the default options in the installer. Not much to do here. And we'll click Launch NavXtender when we're done. What that does is it goes in, and you'll see down at the bottom here, it's added that icon to the tray for notifications and everything else. So the next step is to actually configure it. So we can double click this icon, or I can right click and hit configuration. When I do that, it brings up the configuration dialog for it. And the first thing we need to specify is a config path. The only time you really need to specify this is if you're doing a network installation. In other words, I could have a configuration that's global to everybody, and I can just have everybody reference that main configuration file, which means I don't have to go in and configure everybody's machine individually if I don't want. Otherwise, I can leave that blank and it'll just create the configuration file for me locally. The next thing I need to do is specify where I'm going to store the files that I drop onto NAV. And this will need to be a network folder so that it's accessible to other people working in NAV. If you just put it to your C drive, nobody's going to have access to that. So in my case, I'll put it onto a share here, and I've got a folder called Nav Files, and that's basically it. The web service is used if we want to use the integrated version of NavXtender, which allows us to create record links within NAV when I drop the files. I'm going to leave that for now, and I'll walk through how we set that up in a few minutes here. I'm going to just leave the rest of the defaults or the rest of the settings as they are by default. And that's basically it. Now, when I hit OK, it says, hey, no config path is specified, and that's fine. It'll just create the local one. And it also says we haven't configured the web service, which is also fine. So it'll store the files, but it won't copy or it won't create record links for us in NAV. Both of those are understandable and completely good. And that's really it. That's how you install NavXtender. And now what that does is when I go into NAV, any card page within the system, whether it's a custom page that was created just for you or one of the standard NAV pages, you're now able to drop files onto it. That includes things like dragging an email onto a card, dragging a file from your hard drive onto a card, dragging an attachment from an email, whatever you like. So as an example, I'll go into a purchase order, and I'll open up this particular purchase order document. And you'll notice that we've got an extra button up here at the top. That's actually an option to turn that on or off. But if you're not using the record links functionality with NavXtender, you'll want to have this, because when I have documents associated with this record, I can click on that and it'll show me all the files that I've attached. But the way it works is it's standard NAV. I haven't had to modify anything with NAV at all, but it allows me now, if I go in, I'll just use some files off my hard drive. I can go in and I can say, oh, I want to drop these two files onto this PO. I want to attach these files to that PO. So I can just drag. You'll notice the cursor has changed to a drop cursor. And as soon as I do that, it says, hey, I copied two files. I can hit OK, or can actually open the folder where it dropped those particular files. So hit OK, and we're good. Now again, because we didn't do the integrated part of the install yet, there's no record links, but if I want to see those files, I can simply click this and it'll actually show me those files. So you can see what it did here. It went off to the folder that I specified in the configuration, created a subfolder for the current company I'm in, for the type of card or document that I'm working with, and that specific one. So for purchase order 104001, here are the files that I've attached to that particular PO. And the same thing if I went into an item card or anything else and did the same thing, we'd get that same result. It would create that subdirectory for the item and attach the files to it. That's really all there is to installing and using NavXtender if you're doing the standalone install. Now, the integrated install is a little nicer because what it does is it allows us to create record links within NAV to see what record or what files are attached to that particular record. To do that, we need to do a couple of additional steps. So the first thing I'll do is I'll go in to the zip file, and there's a code unit folder here. And when I open that up, we've got a few different files. So we've got one for NAV 2013, and then we've got one for NAV 2013 R2 and newer. And there's an FOB, which is a compiled file and a text file. You need a developer license to use the text file, but that'll allow you to renumber the object. So if you're an end user, you may want to get a partner to help you with this, or we'll go through and see what it looks like to actually do this import. So what I'll do first is I'm just going to copy this FOB onto my desktop so I have access to it. And then I'm going to open up the NAV development environment and import that file. So the object that gets imported is actually object ID 50011. So if that is available in your database, you can simply import this FOB without any issues at all. If that is not available or it's not in your license, you'll have to get your partner involved to renumber the object or to set it up for you. In my case, I'm simply going to go to File and then Import, and I'm going to go to my desktop, and I'm going to grab that file that came from the zip file, and it says, hey, there's no conflicts, everything's good, so it imports it, and we can now see I've got this NavXtender add link code unit. Next step is I simply run that code unit, and it'll run it within NAV, and it gives me this message. It says, hey, just hit Control-C here. So I hit Control-C, and now I'm going to go back to my NavXtender configuration, and you'll notice it automatically identified that URL on the clipboard and puts it in there for me automatically. So there's nothing I have to do. I simply Control-C in that dialog, open the configuration, and we're good to go. Now what that allows us to do, I'll open up a different PO here. Now when I go ahead and do my drag and drop, so we'll go into my documents here, and if I do my drag and drop, let's take these two guys as an example and drop them in, it now says they've been copied and linked, and you'll notice that I now have record links associated with those things that I dropped. So we now have additional linkage that I can see directly from within Nav, and I don't necessarily have to use this other icon in the title bar. The other advantage of this is you can set it up, so some documents in Nav automatically, if I post a PO or something like that, it can copy those links to the posted document. A number of Nav documents don't do that, but you can have your partner add in the line of code that's required to actually move the record links from one record to another when it's posted or deleted or archived or whatever else you need to do.